What's going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company. Another video today. Today's a musky jig video. I've got a 1/2 ounce Jenko Fishing bass jig hook, but I'm using it for musky. This is a giant, this is like a 9/0 jig hook. I'm only going 1/2 ounce. With all my musky equipment, I've got this spinning rod. This doesn't cast super far, but with all these materials, these 1/2 ounce weights, they sink super slow, so I actually kind of jerk them in shallow water, and it works pretty well. So what I'm going to do, I'm obviously going to articulate this. This is a 6/0 Orvis, just a Orvis big game hook. I'm using this instead of like an Ahrex Predator Stinger because this is a longer shank. And I want this bait to be like 13 inches or even slightly bigger. That's why I've got this little piece of paper here, because I know I'm gonna go probably an inch or two past this, just because I tend to make smaller measurements if I'm just on the fly guessing, and I don't want this bait to be too short. So I put this little piece of tape there just so I know I need to go at least past that. I've got some giant 15mm eyes that I might put on at the end. The reason I've got this is 1/2 inch Blaine chocolate body tubing, and the reason I have this is because I'm going to do a dubbing head, and I want that dubbing head to be really big. And this is going to be all black deer hair, pretty much all black deer hair, and some purple saddle that's going to go on the back. And that deer hair isn't going to stay super puffy, so I want this body tubing to be able to keep that dubbing really big. I actually kind of have it as an oval because I want it to be tall and a little bit thinner, kind of like this jig head is. So I've got 280 denier here, and then I might end up, I'm going to do some hollow tying, and so I'm probably going to switch to mono after I articulate the jig hook with this. I might do my hollow ties with some monofilament. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to add a little bit of black bucktail down here. I've obviously got a rattle here. I really don't care how long this bucktail is going to be. It's just to add a little bit of body and hopefully to prevent a little bit of those hackle from tangling up too much. So I'm just going to put a little bit of deer hair down, get it kind of 360, and I kind of want to avoid my rattle as much as I can. This 280 denier is crazy strong. I'm going to put some flash down right now just to have some flash under the feathers. This is just moonlight. It's just kind of a big clump, but I'm going to put it in pretty long, almost full length. I want this to go pretty far back into those feathers. And I'm losing some tinsel here because So I'm going to get my tinsel down, and I want it to be pretty much full length. And I'm not really worried about splitting this 360 around. I'm just going to kind of keep it on top. Just kind of split it just on the upper half. This is going to actually be the bottom of my bait, but that flash is just going to sit in that hackle that I put down anyway, so I really am not too worried about where I'm putting it down. And it's not too much, it's just gonna hopefully, I'm putting it first because I don't want it to be over all of my hackle. It's gonna kind of blend in anyway, whether you put it in first or second. But so I'll fast forward through a little bit of this because you don't need to see me put on 60 hackle feathers. I've got a bunch of this really nice purple hackle. I actually ordered a quarter saddle from a website called the Feather Emporium. I know it's kind of a funny name, but it's got more feathers on it than I've ever... It's like the biggest feather collection in the world. But it's nice because you can order quarter saddles for like 28 bucks. So I don't have to spend $80 on a purple saddle that I'm gonna use 3 times a year. So I just ordered a quarter saddle, and I'm probably not even using half the feathers. For sure not. So, because it was actually a really nice pelt. It had a ton of feathers. So I'm not really worried about what I'm gonna put down first, whether it's longer or shorter. I just, again, I want to make sure that some of these feathers, you can see this one goes right to that white. I would just want to make sure that some of these feathers go far enough back where they pass that white. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to lay all these down. There's probably 30 or more feathers. So I'll fast forward through it. But I'm just going to kind of put them on the top 180 degrees of my hook. Alright, so all that hackle's down, and I almost want to put more just because it's going to be really thin even when you put a ton in, but I have a ton of black bucktail I'm going to put in here, so I'm hoping most of this bait from my back hook on is going to be really thick, and these hackle can just kind of flutter around. So I've got 2 stacks of black that I'm going to put in, and I'm just going to tie them in full length. I don't care where they go to or anything like that. I'm just putting them in to add a little bit of bulk to as much of this as I can. This will be pretty puffy, but this stuff's going to mat down. So I've got a really nice clump of black bucktail that I'm going to put in, and I put some glue down, so hopefully it's starting to dry a little bit. But I'm just going to get this big wad of bucktail down. I'm going to get it really tight on there, and I can just spin it around. I used like half of a bucktail on this. I got all this hair prepped. It's a ton of bucktail, but my goal with this bait is to make it really big. So, and on these jigs, it's not like I'm stripping it in the water. So like the size really isn't going to affect how the jig kind of moves. So, and it's a 1/2 ounce jig, which isn't like crazy heavy for a musky jig. You know, you see guys throw pounders, I mean, but that's rubber. But so I've got one down, and I'm hoping maybe if I can trim some of this, I should have enough room right by my eye to get one more down. And this, again, I'm not really worried about if this is a lot longer or thicker than my first one. I'm just putting this in to cover up some of that, or to help add some of that bulk that I want behind my hook. So I'll cord up my thread and I'll come right up here. I'm not going to go quite to my eye because my bucktail will do that. And I don't want this to go anywhere. So I'm going to kind of hold on to this really tight and just comb it out. And it looks like it's pushing up super high, but it won't. There shouldn't really be any flare in this or anything. Once I get it spun around, it should be, or for sure when it gets wet, it won't. And I can clean that eye up with my scissors, so I'm just running wire through it anyway. So if my eye gets a little covered, that won't be the end of the world. I just want to make sure that this gets cinched down super tight. I'm like about to bend my bobbin. And I could add a little flash there too. So this is going to be the back hook, the articulated part. It's just all black, and then the purple tail is what it's going to be. One of the main musky lakes I fish got zebra mussels a few years ago, and on Fishing Opener, I don't know when I'm going to post this video, but the water clarity was like 10 feet. And so dark baits and stuff like that is what I tend to throw when it's really, really clear. And this is kind of what I'm thinking. So I'll throw, well, no, I won't throw any flash yet. So I'm going to get this glued and whip finished off, and we'll articulate it. All right, so got my big jig hook in. I'm actually using a 55 millimeter, what are these called? Next Gen shanks. I've never used them before. I just got them. I'm interested to see how it works. I want to add a little bit of weight to this hook, or to this bait. So I've got these big tungsten beads, and I was gonna use them for the articulation, but you don't need them with these Next Gen shanks. So I'm gonna put them up behind this body tubing when I get up there. I think I'm just gonna add 2. These are giant. I'll have to look at the size, I'll show you. These are giant. These are the biggest tungsten beads I've been able to find these are for fly fishing. They're like, I think 2 of them is equivalent to 1/8 of an ounce. They're crazy heavy. So I'm gonna fast forward through this, but I'm gonna get this down just like this, just like you normally would. And I think, I've never used these Next Gen shanks. I think I'm just gonna wrap it down. I'm gonna add tons of glue, and hopefully this is gonna be a strong enough hold. I don't know, but we'll see. Alright, so the articulation's in. Again, I think that's going to hold. I put a ton of glue down. That wire's bending a little bit, but it doesn't look like... It looks like... So the one of the back shank is vertical, and the front is horizontal. So hopefully I put that in right. I don't know. I should have watched a video of someone doing it correctly, but, you know, it is what it is. So I've got just a bunch of stacks of deer hair, black, that I'm going to be putting in here. The first one I'm just going to tie in normal, and then the rest I'm going to try and do like hollow tying. And then occasionally, maybe every other, I've got some Nightmare Musky Fly Wavelength Flash, and this is kind of just crinkle flash or whatever you want to call it. I think it's just a blend of all that stuff. It doesn't look like there's any dubbing or anything in it. It's just a bag of flash. And I'm going to put that in just because this is, what color is this? UV golden brown. It's just going to add a little gold, a little copper into the all black. I was going to put black holographic flashabou, but I wanted just a little subtle difference in just the all black. So I'm going to fast forward through this until I get up to here. I'm going to add some weight, and then I'm going to come up here, and I've got a little bit of marabou, and I'm going to put down that Titan dub up here. But again, I'm going to do a normal tie, and then I'm going to do probably 5 hollow ties, and I'll see you up here. Alright, bucktail's down, hollow tied. It's always a little tricky with a giant jig head and that tubing, but you know, just do the best you can, I guess. Mine definitely isn't perfect. I'm not a hollow tie kind of guy, but I put that tungsten weight in there. It's kind of pushing the hair back. I wish it didn't. I can't remember what these are called. I already took off the label, but so 7/32 tungsten beads are the biggest I had found, and these are bigger. I'm up at the head, and what I'm gonna do is I've got some marabou that I'm just gonna put a little bit of marabou. I'm just gonna do like one wrap just to cover up this body tubing, just so it's all black. I'm hoping when this gets wet, when this kind of goes down, that marabou will just sit right on top. But really, it's just to cover this body tubing. And I've got 2 feathers that I'm going to put on. And I've never done a head like this. It's super close. I'm hoping I still have plenty of room for my dubbing, which I'll just put right over it. That chocolate tubing, now you can't really see the tubing, and marabou is so light that, I mean, even blowing it back, it's just gonna sit right on that deer hair, hopefully. Alright, so for this Titan dub, Nightmare Musky Flies Titan dub, this is UV Black Mirror. I was gonna blend, this is Black Fire Tiger, because it's just got a little green in it. I was thinking about splitting it, but I think I'm thinking about it too hard. So I just picked which one I thought looked better, and that's the mirror. So I've got 2 very healthy chunks of this dubbing, and I'm actually gonna go a little bit more by the head. It'll probably be 70-30 maybe. And I'm just gonna put that, I wish I had a way to get this marabou back. A couple clips maybe. I just don't want to wrap over a bunch of this marabou. So I'm gonna put these both on top and on bottom, and that ball out of the way. And then I can kind of spread it out, but I want more on top and bottom than on the sides. So I'll come with just a loose wrap right by my head. That'll tuck right into there. Then I can get a good couple tight wraps. And I just want to comb this out a little bit to kind of get it spread out evenly on my jig, but again, mostly on top for this one, or this is actually the bottom. And I can come here, and this will be my top, but it's the same dubbing, so it's not like they're going to be different colors, and if it's not 50-50 on each side, you're going to be able to tell. You're not going to be able to tell, because it's all the same anyway. I just got to watch out for that big jig part. Push that down. That tight. Don't want to wrap too much of my other dubbing. Get that down. Comb it out a little bit. Because I'm going to put some big eyes on here. And so if I can just get that back. And work all of it back. This is kind of ridiculous. Get those clips out of the way. If this isn't a big enough jig, I don't know what is. So, but I wanted something bigger because the couple other videos that I've done with the squimfish and even that other like 11-inch with the hackle top and the deer bottom, I got them wet and they're still just a little bit thin when I'm pulling them through the water. And because again, this heavy head, when you have a fly and it's pretty much buoyant, it can kind of flare when it's moving. But these, when you jerk it, it immediately starts to sink, and all of that material, you can't see what I'm doing, all of that material, as soon as it starts to sink, kind of sucks back in. So this is like 5 times bigger than how it's going to actually look in the water. So I have to add, I've yet to add too much. And so I kind of want to find that too much area. And so, unfortunately, Nightmare Musky flies, Titan Dub is like $3.50 a pack. So it's not like I'm spending $25 in dubbing. And a black bucktail's, I don't know, you can get a crappy black bucktail for $9. And so this isn't like a crazy expensive fly. I mean, the purple hackle is a little bit, but I gotta comb this out. But really, these materials aren't crazy. And the Jenko jigs aren't crazy expensive either. I think 2 of them are like $6 for how big the hook is. That's not, you know, crazy. All right, so this bait is already ridiculous enough. So I'm gonna add some 15mm eyes to this thing. The tricky part is that body tubing isn't perfectly flat, it's curved, and it sticks out farther than my jig head does. And my jig head has a little flat part there, so I could either put it kind of on there, but it doesn't sit super flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them back here. So it might look a little goofy, but this bait is already absurd. And so, and you know, I'm a grown up. I can do what I want. So I'm going to put some gel Loctite on this eye, this giant eye. Good thing about these big eyes is you can mess around with them in your hand and not really get glue all over your fingers. So I'm going to push that right on there. I'm going to put it all on my dubbing. I'm not going to put any of it on my jig head, just because it's just not going to like get secure, because there'd be a gap where my thread is. It would touch my head and it would touch the dubbing, but there'd be a gap where the thread is. I could build my thread up a ton too, and I thought about that, but these eyes fall off anyway. They're gonna fall off, so I try not to spend half of my time worrying about something that's gonna fall off anyway. So I'll get my eye, and I just want to make sure it's about up there. you really only get a quick chance at this before it sets. I don't want to get any. It doesn't look half bad. Well, and you can see the eye is kind of slanted. That's why in the camera I think it's looking slanted. But this is probably, I mean, if it's more than 12, it's going to go past. It should be. So it's probably about 13 inches, which is, might be to date, the biggest jig video I've made. Purple and black, little flash, musky jig. Let's catch some 50s, huh? Junior's Fishing Company, like and subscribe. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one.